the national political debates. Brought to you by Jamaica Debates Commission in association with Jamaica Public Service Company Limited, changing lives with their mission, and the DNG Foundation. Here for Jamaicans, here for Jamaica.
Welcome back to the first in a series of 3 political debates being facilitated by the Jamaica Debates Commission. If you're just joining us, welcome as well. We will invite Nadine McLeod of the RGR Group to start this segment with a follow-up question.
Thank you. I'd asked Team JLP earlier a question about the PSJ, the head of the PSJ who was sent home. You had said that you cannot answer the question, understandably. But can you address the issue of perceived victimization of members of the public sector who speak out on issues?
I believe that victimization is wrong. It's wrong. There is a process that should be undertaken if there is a problem. And I know that this is a perception that people are being victimized. I think it's wrong if it actually exists. But let us not jump the gun. Let us allow each case to be investigated and let us see what happens. Because people's lives are affected in a personal way. And you know, it's we who let each other down on a one-to-one basis. We are the ones, we the Jamaican people, who disregard process. We shouldn't do it. So I think if there is a proper case of victimization, there should be recourse. But let us not prejudge an issue.
And may I emphasize that the reason that I chose not to respond to that question was because there was a civil servant involved in the issue. It was a personal matter.
No from Team PNP.
I must say, I know Mrs. Germain personally, and this victimization started when we made a joint presentation to a parliamentary committee. Now, the truth is that you have 156 positions for pharmacists and you only have 45. And what they have done is to use pharmacy techs to dispense meds in the other pharmacies. Now, that is just wrong. The woman is defending something that is there by law. Now, if they can't show some just reason for it to happen.
Thank you, Dr. Campbell. Ingrid Bowen now has the next question, and it goes to Team JLP.
Why should Jamaica continue to have a shortage of some professions when there are brilliant Jamaicans who just need the financial support to be trained in these areas? What would be the solution under a government formed by your party?
Well, the Prime Minister, as Minister of Education, indicated that there has to be a new regime in the financing of tertiary education. It requires the development of an education trust to allow parents to save towards the tertiary education of their children. It requires participation from the public sector and it requires participation from the private sector. This is working at the University of the West Indies today, that is raising its endowment fund. And to complement that, we have demonstrated our commitment by making it easier at the Student Loan Bureau for students to access financing. Outside of that, we must emphasize that there is a personal responsibility that must be communicated to parents, that they too have a stake in the education of their children.
Thank you, Mr. Newby. We'll have a rebuttal from Team PNP.
You know, Raymond, Dayton and myself are standing here because of the policies and programs of the People's National Party. Dayton himself grew up in Bamboo St. Anne and was able to access university education. Raymond and myself were able to access university education as well. All Jamaicans want to be able to see their children access higher education and learning and certainly live a better quality of life. We in the PNP plan to reallocate resources. That's the first thing. But the second thing is to structure a better deal with the Student Loan Bureau so that students can pay back their loans that is tied to their employment at an interest rate that they can afford.
Yes, yes, yes.
Thank you, Ms. Hanna. Ingrid Bowen has indicated that she would like to use her first follow-up question.
For those unable to meet the criteria of the Student Loan Bureau, would you support bonding of such persons, the government financing their training, and then they are bonded to public sector?
This is an approach that has been done before, certainly with persons in the medical profession who are enabled to complete their training and then are bonded for a period of time, and also in the educational profession. But I must indicate that this message about tying repayment to persons' employment, we have already taken decisions that for medical doctors, for other professions who have to repay greater sums, we are going to be realigning their loan repayments to reflect those realities. So that has been done already. And then beyond that, the issue of bonding is something that is being done and can be enhanced over in the next term.
Thank you, Mr. Newby. We'll now have a rebuttal from Team PNP.
I somehow don't think that my opponents have a real grasp of what is going on in the country. Because when I hear the number of students being deregistered, when I hear the number of students who are at home who don't have a job, whose students' loan is rising every month, I'm wondering if we're talking about the same thing. Now, what we are bringing to the table is that we're saying that as long as a student, and this is the concept that the People's National Party is built on, of equality, as long as they have what it takes, they should be able to get that education, especially members of our disabled community.
Garfield Burford has the next question. It goes to Team PNP.
Standard & Poor's, in their outlook on Jamaica and lowering the outlook to negative, they cited the possibility for early elections and a change in administration. Are you concerned that Standard & Poor's is concerned about a change in administration?
Standard & Poor's concern is rightly placed at the fact that the current administration have so mismanaged the situation, missing IMF tests. In fact, we don't know whether or not they are taken, but we certainly know they have not been passed. And their warning really was for a fixity of purpose, as stated in the letter of intent with the IMF, which has been frustrated by, one, the long protracted denial of the global recession, the failure to properly diagnose, and then the lateness to response, which has become typical of whether it's Bruce Golding or Andrew Holness. That's one thing that has certainly been reflected in the continuity approach Mr. Holness speaks about. Standard & Poor's wants a change in administration in terms of the management of the economy. We are not concerned that they were saying not an administration of the People's National Party. They really were saying what is happening cannot continue to happen. Our private sector apprecicates that. Consumers
Thank you, Mr. Pryce.
We
will now have a rebuttal from Team JLP.
You are wrong, Mr. Pryce, because what is reflected by Standard & Poor is the general view of the international capital markets of a fear of the People's National Party. They know that you have missed so many targets that you have set in your administration of 18 years that they are scared that there's an opportunity that you could return.
I've had a lot of discussions with my friends in the international community, and the fear is that a PNP administration has shown no credibility in managing the economy well in times of plenty, and therefore there is nervousness as to whether they will be able to do it in these very difficult times. And so there is a concern as to whether the current policies will
Thank you,
continued.
Mrs. Malahoo Forte. Nadine McLeod has the next question. It's to Team JLP.
The female-male ratio tertiary institution is more than 80-20. To what extent is this a concern to your party, and how urgently will you address this issue?
That is one of the important undertakings of CAP. For every one girl that is enrolled in CAP, there are 2 boys, because we recognize the deficit. CAP enables them to reach matriculation, and through a combination of what is offered by the workforce colleges of the Hard Trust NTA and the traditional offerings of the universities, we are sure that by 2020 we are going to be increasing the number of Jamaicans who are degreed and lettered.
And let us underscore the fact that the persons involved who are taken into CAP are persons who are usually unattached youths, persons who are usually school leavers without a full completed education, and persons who require that level of additional training to make them worthy of entering the workplace market. So these are the disenfranchised youths who normally would not have an opportunity to further themselves in their employment capabilities.
Thank you, Dr. Longmore. We will now have a rebuttal from Team PNP.
You know, the issue with CAP is that I believe it needs to be capped. If it has been as successful as our opponents believe, then why aren't the young people who it has been designed to attract not seeing themselves matriculate from welfare to well-being and from well-being to wealth creation? The missing link that none of these representatives of the Jamaica Labour Party seem to be willing to confront is that a government's primary job is to grow the economy, as the People's National Party did in 15 of 18 years in its last tenure in office, and not as the shrill remarks of Marlene suggest that her friends in the international community have told her that they're afraid of a
Thank you, Mr. Pryce. We will now have the next question from Ingrid Brown, and it goes to Team PNP.